What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I know it's been a few weeks. NASCAR took a break, mainly due to Olympic coverage, I think, with NBC having the rights to show all the races. But they are back, and so are we, Brian Twining, and we're back to talk some NASCAR. How's it going?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. I am so excited to get these NASCAR races back up and going. I know the NFL is starting up, and as we're recording this right now, the Hall of Fame game is going on, but it's still preseason, so that's on the back burner still. We're getting into the nitty-gritty of the NASCAR season here with certain guys that are going to be needing wins to get into that playoffs.
Yeah, it's wild times. We're marching towards the NASCAR playoff. We're getting excited about what it can be. We're also talking fantasy football and NFL. So if you play fantasy, if you want some help with your leagues this year, make sure you check out our content over there. I know there's a lot of you that hang out for the NASCAR. If you play football too, then come over and check it out. If you are interested in football betting, come over and check that out. We'll have shows a couple times a week. But we're back to talk NASCAR, and it's been a few weeks. So let's just dive into it, Brian. Look at the betting board and see where your head's at, because for me, this feels like a welcome back NASCAR. Really focus in on that top half of the board. Don't get too crazy. Don't overextend yourself, and have a kind of wade back into the pool kind of game rather than cannonballing after 4 margaritas into the deep end and seeing what happens.
Man, speak for yourself.
So apparently Ron Burgundy's on the other end of the line, huh?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, no, I'm definitely diving really deep into this race because I've been fixing for my NASCAR over the last couple of weeks. But like you said, though, this is probably not the race that you want to be doing that with, especially we were talking pre-recording that they haven't ran here since 2019. As you can tell by the odds, Chase Elliott's won the last 2 races here as he is the road course master in NASCAR right now. But, I think this race is definitely going to be more of a top 10, top 20 market now that DraftKings has expanded to top 20 than trying to pick out a winner.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I think if you're looking at the outright market, I'm not sure you want to go beyond Denny Hamlin, and I don't even know if I really want to go that far. Elliott, Larson, Truex feel like the 3 that you're just asking me to pick someone to win the race, I feel like it'll be one of those 3. Truex, I don't know, I guess where are you at with him kind of in general? Because we had some struggles, and then it seemed like things were kind of coming back together, and right before the break we were feeling decent about him, and in theory this would be a good spot. Are you comfortable getting back on board? Maybe even looking at just a plus 165 to top 3, something like that.
Truex is really hard. I mean, when looking at just history at this race, looking back the last 3 races, Truex has finished top 2 in all 3 of those with 2 consecutive runner-ups to Elliott's victories. But, in terms of how they're running, Truex has been all over the map of late this season. So it's really hard to kind of prognosticate what we're going to see coming out of this really long break. But with that said, I do think that Joe Gibbs racing team, with these 3 weeks off, had a lot of time to kind of fix all these things that we've been seeing them have issues with over the last couple of weeks, with lack of speed or just issues with their tires. So I'm more tempted to lean Truex 6-1. Just I like the number better than Chase Elliott at 2-1 because those odds are so short. For a 38 car field, especially starting 11th back for Elliott. But it's really hard to jump back on board with Party Marty.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Marty's numbers from basically 2019 on, 1st, 2nd, 7th, 3rd, 7th, and you're thinking, okay, great, heading into 2020, still feeling good. And then 2021 starts, and he finishes 21st, and then 12th, and then 35th at the Circuit of Americas. And then you're like, uh-oh. And then he seems to maybe get it together because he gets a 3rd at Sonoma in June, and then in July at the Road America race, finishes 9th. Not ideal, but, decent finish. So there's If you want to go glass half full, he's getting into form. If you want to go glass half empty, it's been a rough year. You are praying, you are laying a pretty short number. So, I wouldn't blame anyone who wanted to fade him here, both on the betting board, and then we'll, obviously talk DraftKings here in a bit. But it's just, he's a very interesting test case. I'll be very curious to see if people are just willing to dive back in on him and ownership skyrockets, or if he's going to be kind of, not super popular this week.
Yeah, and of note with that Joe Gibbs team, I mean, Kyle Busch has been the best out of that group of late. But Denny Hamlin, this guy, he needs to get into the winner's circle, because it's starting to look like he may be the odd man out with all of these different guys winning races this year. If Hamlin cannot notch at least a victory, he's in danger of missing the playoffs after dominating the majority of like the first 10 or so races this year. I mean, he's really got to get back into form, and at that 11-1 number and a decent history at Watkins Glen in particular, I'm more tempted to go that route just because I love the double digits than staying inside those double digit numbers or the single digits.
He's really interesting if you want to take the gamble. Like, he's starting 6th, so in a good spot to kind of move up, finish. Like, if I told you could have, either guy at 11-1, would you take Truex at that number, or would you rather have Hamlin?
Man, that's really hard. I'd probably take Hamlin just because I think he has less variance in his finishing spots this year.
But the fact that it's even close, like a discussion, says that if it's 11-1 versus 6-1, you should just hammer Hamlin and not go to Truex.
Yeah, definitely. And then even with Hamlin, just looking at the board here, he's plus money to top 5 this week, which I think is great value for a driver of his caliber, especially with this time off, going into a track that they haven't ran in over a year. So this is really going to be based on the experience of these drivers. And with all that prep time, it's almost like a Bill Belichick type of thing in the NFL, where I'm going to lean on the side of caution with the vets.
Yeah. The one thing I will say, Brian, and I mentioned this last time we were at a road course, and, basically convinced myself that it wasn't really a thing. And why am I doing this? Christopher Bell, 15-1. Might be worth a gander. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you were right on the nail with that one. It's just I don't know, man. He's had too many different types of races this year, and the consistency just hasn't been there for me to jump 100%. Back on board with him.
And that's why like a top 3 or top 5 or top 10 bet doesn't make as much sense to me as an outright. Because when he sucks, he's really bad. But when he pops, he's in contention to win the whole damn thing. So, like I said, I this is kind of the same conversation we had. What was it before Circuit of Americas? Let me find him right here. Where did you pop Christopher Bell? Road America. Yeah. So he ended up finishing 2nd. So, started 13th, finished 2nd.
He is on a decent string of races. I mean, prior to the break, he had 3 consecutive top 10s, with 2 of those being second place finishes. So I mean, he's been either
outside the top 20 or inside the top 3. There's no in between for him.
Yeah,
when you're betting outrights, that's somebody you can get behind, because if everything comes together, he's going to be in contention. If it doesn't, well, then you can rip that ticket after the first third of the race and not worry about it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. Any other betting top 5s, top 10s, head-to-heads, anything else from a betting perspective that you're kind of looking into this week?
I mean, like we talked about, I really like Hamlin to top 5 at plus money. I think that's something I'll be all over. I mean, he's just such a good driver to think with this preparation time for him not to finish up there, knowing what he has to do before the playoffs. I really like that. I'm looking at, I mean, that's probably about it in the top 5 markets. And then the top 10s, you know, I'm looking at Alex Bowman, who's almost
I
even
really
money.
like Alex Bowman this week.
Again, I've talked about him on numerous occasions over road courses. This dude, his worst finish at a road course is 14th over the last 2-3 years. And I mean, when you're talking about how good he's been, he's tied for the 4th most top 10s with, I think it's 3 other guys at road courses since the beginning of 2018, and nobody really talks about him. So getting almost even money at a top 10 here, I think is tremendous value for a guy starting in the top 10 already.
Yeah, and considering some of the garbage baseball teams all back at minus 120, to back Bowman to finish in the top third of the race, I think is definitely something I can get myself behind. Let's switch over and talk a little DK. I think there's a lot of interesting conversations to be had there. I'll throw up our core and kind of give everybody a sense of where we're at as of now, but I do want to dive into some of the pricing because I think there's some very interesting discussions to be had at different points of the board. So let's look at your names, and you know you'll hear some familiar names for sure. But let's start with Kurt Busch, 10K, and starting 17th. I feel like that's a nice place to start.
Yeah, this road courses are Kurt Busch's best tracks over his career, much to my surprise after looking at some of the data on driveraverages.com and Racing Reference and all that stuff. His average finished on road courses is 14th over his entire career, which is a pretty damn long sample size. He's 4 of his last 6 in road courses. He's finished top 6. So, I mean, this guy's running near the top of the field, and at 10K starting at 17th, I think he's more likely to finish in the top 10 than he is to fall back from 17th. So I can't pass that up at 10K. Denny Hamlin, I already talked about him at 9,400. I think it's great value for such a good driver. Starting in row 3, he has the opportunity to lead some laps early on. I know it's only 90 laps, so that's not big, but with the potential to win the race at 9,400, give me that. Going back to the well with Eric Jones, I am kind of disgusted with myself here, but I think
it's the move, honestly.
He finished top 5 in each of the last 2 races here, so he's got the history. He's in a different
car, so you don't love that.
Yes.
But he's 7K. Like, he's so easy to fit in to a race where, I was telling you a little bit before the race, like going down this far, like I'm like repulsed by a lot of these names. So to get a guy that I can at least try and convince myself isn't a terrible play at 7K, I'm happy to do.
Yeah, and he's one of 8 active drivers that has 3 or more top 5s at road courses since 2018. So he does decent on road courses. And like you said, he's in a different car, but he's already talked about wants to commit to Richard Petty one more season. So he's looking for a ride, and he's going to need to show some things over this last half of the season in order to secure a spot next year. And then my last guy, Corey Lejoy. This is based on a salary savings, but he's been scoring over 20 points in 9 of the last 10 races, or DraftKings points. And he's got an average finish of 20th at road courses over his last 3. So if he can just get anywhere near it, he's starting 29th. If he can move up a couple of spots and just maintain without going a lap down or crashing or anything like that, that's what I'm looking for at that salary.
Yeah, well, and there's going to be, we'll talk some names at the top. If you want to try and jam in a couple of the really expensive guys, you're going to have to dive down in here into the grossness. And Lejoy is somebody that I could see myself falling on as well. I love Chase Elliott, 10-6. I don't care his price. It's worth doing to me, especially where he's starting. I think he could absolutely win this race, plus the placement points. Ryan Blaney is somebody that I feel like I want to get to. I know his recent run at road courses hasn't been great. A lot of, in the teens and a 20th finish at the last road course, but a driver I believe in, and one we've seen pop at different spots, including Watkins Glen the last time we ran here. He got a 5th place in the race. So I don't know. I don't love it. I'm not, pounding the board for it, but you got to find some salary savings, and I think he's interesting enough and provides upside. And depending on how you want to build your lineups, I think he could make some sense. Obviously, in a road course, won't have as many points for laps led, but I think is interesting. Christopher Bell, I told you, I'm on board. Like I think this guy, obviously I like him more for betting than DFS, but another guy in that kind of weird range where I think he could be interesting if you want to, find some guys. Like if you want, I think pairing one of those two guys with Chase Elliott as kind of your first two drivers makes a lot of sense. Try and get some laps led with either Bell or Blaney, and then have Elliott take over. And then I'm with you on Eric Jones. It's gross, but he's 7K and has a good history at road courses and at Watkins Glen, and hopefully they figured out some stuff with his car over the couple-week break and get back to it. So, Brian, I'm going to throw some interesting discussion points at you, and I want to see where your head's at, because I think that, I think that basically that range of Kyle Busch all the way down to Kyle Larson, that, above 10K range, is incredibly interesting, and I think a lot of people are going to try and get a couple of those names in there. Obviously, you mentioned you like Kurt Busch at a flat 10, but if you had to pick a name or two inside that, I guess pick your top two names inside that, above Kurt Busch, that if you were trying to start with a expensive build with those guys and kind of figure it out later, where would you go?
I think you got to start at the very top of the board, and that's Elliott and Kyle Busch.
Okay.
With their starting positions, Kyle Busch starting 20th, I really doubt he's going to finish outside the top 10 here. And then Chase Elliott being the 2-1 odds-on favorite. I mean, he's more than 200% lower odds, or whatever, shorter odds than the next guy on the board to win the race. So starting 11th. So not only are you going to get those 10 movement points if he wins the race, but then you're also probably going to get, 10 laps minimum leading, and numerous fastest laps here. So I think you have to start right at the top if you're going to go there, because Kyle Larson, as good as he was over that one stretch, he hasn't been the same the last couple of races.
I'd go back to him. I wouldn't be afraid at all.
Hendrick has fallen back to the pack. The other teams have caught up over these last I want to say 4 to 5 races. I think
they're going to remind everybody just how dominant they've been this season.
I would love to see the new Rainbow Warrior, my boy Willie B, move up there too.
One thing I will say is something like a Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin start could make a lot of sense, especially if you need a little salary savings and want to dip kind of into that 9K. I'm shocked you didn't say William Byron. I mean, I get it, but it's kind of like a broken record at this point. It's just, Brian, who do you like? William Byron. Okay, next driver.
Yeah.
So
I had to remove my heart from this 3 weeks really let me reflect on my DFS decisions with Willie B. So
yeah, I'm really curious to see who the popular driver that everybody loves is going to actually be terrible. I remember Ryan Newman was that guy before the break. We did have the Almirola call. I don't think we've recorded since that happened. So that was a nice. That was a nice call on my half. I wish I had bet the outright instead of just placement, because I would like to have cashed that big old ticket, but undoubtedly I did not do it. So we talked Lejoy. Is there anybody else, let's say, below 7K that anybody else that even garners some interest? I mean, our boys Almirola and Bubba are down there, Cole Custer, Ricky Spinouts. Yeah, it's pretty gross.
I mean, there's not really a lot of names. I like kind of James Davison, I think, starting 36 at 5,900.
I appreciate that.
I think he could get into the top 30, especially with this being kind of a longer road course. I think there's a good chance that he stays on the lead lap. And then, looking higher than that, I mean, I hate doing it, but Bubba Wallace starting 26th. I mean, eventually this guy, he has to get his together and, start making some headway in terms of these races and not just finishing in the low 20s. So starting 26 at 6,600, I think he has a good chance to finish in the top 20. It's not great. But, other than that, I mean, the names at the bottom of this list this week are just...
They're gross.
It's kind of repulsive, and it's disgusting looking down there. So that's why I went Lejoy's route.
Yeah, I was just looking at Ricky Stenhouse, like...
Starting 18th, though?
I'm trying to convince myself of somebody, because I'm building my lineup, and I have Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, Eric Jones, Corey Lejoy, and I went with Alex Bowman, which gives me about 8,300. So I want to be somewhere in that 7K range, and that means like Busher, DiBenedetto, Suarez, McDowell. Like, it's disgusting.
I would rather pay up for Daniel Suarez at 7,500 than go with Ricky Stenhouse. Let me just say that. Because Stenhouse, he's starting 18th. His best finish at Watkins Glen was the last time they raced here in 2019. It's 15th. Prior to that, 16th. And then every other race before that was 20th or worse, with 2 finishing 31st, 34th, and 38th. So I don't think he's a guy that's going to move up very much.
No. But like you said, we need to. I think honestly, we're better served diving deeper, finding another Lejoy that's not going to kill us, and then finding some salary savings, and then going back up to the top and getting, like, if I could get Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, and Denny Hamlin, and then just have Eric Jones, Corey Lejoy, and then dive into that 6K or lower range. Like, I can still get Bubba, I can get Cole Custer, I can get James Davison. Like, there's options there. Like, I know it's not gross, you don't feel great about it, but you also get to put Kurt Busch and Kyle Busch and somebody else in your lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't want to go for the 2-pack of the Busch brothers again. I mean, they've hit before, so
put the Busch brothers on ice. And if you want to get real feisty, you can. If you do Davison, you can put in a Kyle Busch, or I mean, you could put in a Kyle Larson or Martin Truex. So
there you go. That's
top heavy approach, but sometimes in GPPs, those can be interesting ways to end up cashing. So I like that call quite a bit. All right, Brian, we talked some betting. We talked some DK. I guess there's only one thing left. What's your best bet?
Oh, this is easy. I talked about it early. This has got to be Denny Hamlin, top 5 plus 105. It's kind of a safer play, but a top 5 plus money with a driver of his caliber. Hell yes. Sign me up.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think it's something I'll probably find myself gravitating towards. Man, I'm gonna go Alex Bowman, top 10, minus 120. Like I said, I'm playing my cards. I'm playing some low stakes blackjack. Not gonna get too crazy. Not gonna dive into the deep end and build up a little bit this week, and then next week is as the playoffs approaches, I'll start betting and getting in. I do want to ask you one thing though. Let's look at the futures. I'm obviously, like I said, I'm holding a Kyle Larson. I think 12-1 to win the NASCAR championship. He's currently plus 280 on DraftKings. If you were looking to potentially hedge, like Denny Hamlin, despite not having a win, is still plus 750, which I think is a little short. Is there a name or two that you think that's kind of an interesting number for that guy?
I mean, I think you got to go down to the guy right below him, and that's Truex at 8-1. I mean, we've seen him put together a nice string of races, and then, I mean, even a guy like Alex Bowman at 14-1.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. Like I'd much rather bet Alex Bowman than like Keselowski, Harvick, Logano group. Like I feel like there's a chance that they make it to like the Elite Eight or the Final Four or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just like it's just an accumulation thing for them. It's not necessarily like they don't have that elite win kind of mentality. I like the Alex Bowman call quite a bit. I like the Ryan Blaney at 18, even though I shouldn't, because I keep finding myself gravitating towards him for some crazy reason. And Kurt Busch, 25, is guaranteed a playoff spot. You know what he does with it once he gets there, who knows? But not completely insane, especially if we like him this week. Could make things kind of fun. What's his number to top 10 or top 5 this week? Top 10.
Let's see.
Minus 140 to top 10. Don't hate that.
Yeah, I see. Okay, that's a perfect example. I find that really interesting that Kurt Busch could be minus 140 starting 17th, and he's been kind of inconsistent throughout the year. He's kind of been done one of these, been a roller coaster. And then you have a guy like Byron at the same number, or Alex Bowman at better odds, who have been probably slightly more consistent than Kurt Busch this season. You know, it's interesting. I think the veterans are definitely getting more of the money here leading into this race after having not raced here since 2019.
Well, and so I think previous track experience, although we've seen a couple races, including the dirt race, where the track experience actually didn't really matter and no, it didn't anything. But there is certain drivers for certain, you know, they call it horses for courses, right? There's certain guys that just tend to play well or drive well or whatever at different courses. And this just may be a Kurt Busch track, and that's kind of why they're vaulting him up here. But, you know, like I envision a scenario where where Kurt Busch, you know, I feel like he's just kind of plodding along, or I think a guy like Alex Bowman or William Byron might push a little bit and end up wrecking or whatever. So I don't know. All right, Brian. So you're Denny Hamlin, top 5. I'm Alex Bowman, top 10. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you mash that thumbs up. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you tell a friend about our NASCAR show. Down in the comments, let us know who your pick to win the Go Bowling at the Glen 2021. Who's winning on Sunday? Who's taking that checkered flag? Let us know down in the comments. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to y'all next time.